very well, thanks.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming along. This is always a difficult session to run at World Travel Market. People struggle to get into the building and find where to leave their coats. So, to be honest, I'm quite surprised that we have such a big turnout. It's important to say that this session is being videoed in its entirety, and that's because all the events in this room today will be videoed. I chose to put this topic into this slot for a couple of reasons. It's important, I think, that it's videoed. This will not be the last time that we come back to the issues of employment in the travel and tourism industry at World Travel Market. It is, as it happens, the first time that we've addressed the issue, so far as I know. But I think it's a very important issue in the context of responsible tourism, and I suspect that we'll be doing it every year, at least for a few years. We started the disability issue in this slot 3 years ago, and that's grown in the amount of coverage and the amount that we've done over the years, and I'm sure that the employment issue will be the same. So I wanted to welcome you to the first of this year's Responsible Tourism events, the programme which we run every year with World Travel Market here in London, and which we will now be running in Latin America, Arabia and Africa as well. So responsible tourism is growing at World Travel Market, so I think it's important that we continue to set the agenda. That's really all I wanted to say, except to introduce my new colleague, John Swarbrooke, who's going to chair this session. John is from Manchester Metropolitan University, and as some of you will know, I've moved there in the last few days. And I wanted, it's in a sense I'd like to welcome all of the panel, but I won't do that. I would, however, like to acknowledge how pleased I am to see Curran here from the trade unions. I think it's a really big step forward for us at World Travel Market to have a speaker from outside of the normal travel and tourism people to invite. So I'm particularly pleased to see you, Kevin. But I'm delighted that all of you are here as well. And I'm going to hand over to John, since it's really his session. Thanks very much, John.
Thanks very much, Harold. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I don't think I need to stand there, do I? I think you can hear perfectly well what I'm saying. Yes? Yes. Someone in the back, please say yes. Brilliant. Okay, we're in business. Ladies and gentlemen, as Harold said, very important session, I think, this one to begin with. We have this industry, as we know, where people have two fairly polarised views. One group of people see this as a wonderful industry that creates lots and lots of jobs, provides opportunities for people from all kinds of backgrounds to get into employment, and other people see it as an industry which lacks what they might term quality jobs, and also sometimes suggested, understandably, that we suffer from issues like low status, low pay, and therefore it's not being seen as a serious industry, and a mature industry, perhaps you could argue. We want to look at that this morning. The other thing I think we really want to look at as well is what's being done to encourage people to come into the industry, and how is the industry professionalised in the way it educates and trains everyone in the workforce, everyone who's employed, to make sure the industry is truly recognised as a professional, modern, up-to-date industry operating in a responsible way in terms of its workforce as well as just in terms of the environment. And therefore I think I'd like to start off, and I think it's very important, the first speaker is to ask Kevin Curran, who is the branch secretary of the Central London Hotel Workers branch of Unite, to begin with his thoughts to start with, please. Thank you, Kevin.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Is this on? Yep. Yep. First of all, thanks very much for the invitation to come and speak today. As both John and Harold have said, this is the first time I think that we in Unite have had a platform to put our views across about how we see the sector. And it's by no means all bad. It's critical, but clearly we understand the importance of the role of the hospitality sector in the London and UK economy, and we're anxious to play a part in it. As John has said, he's said to the speakers, we've got 7 minutes each, so I'm going to, rather boringly, read from some notes, because I want to use the 7 minutes as comprehensively as possible, and hopefully at the end of everyone's contribution we can have an exchange of views. So once again, thanks very much for this invitation, and I look forward to a useful debate. First of all, the views I express today are based on hundreds of one-to-one conversations I've had with hotel workers in London, as well as group conversations over the last 8 years. Now, my responsibility as a trade unionist is to assist workers to enable them to organise and establish a collective voice in their workplace so that they're able to represent their interests as equals with their employers. Now, at the moment, there is not one comprehensive collective bargaining agreement between any trade union and any hotel employer in the whole of London. Now, I understand that that scenario may appeal to some people, but I'll attempt today to put the opposite view under three main headings, and those headings are business reasons, reasons of social and economic justice, and political reasons. The first, business reasons. Now, we all know that London is an incredibly vibrant, diverse, and culturally attractive world city, and that's because of our history and our people. The rich, the famous, the sightseers, music and sports fans, those seeking both high and lowbrow culture, they all come to London to be photographed in a red telephone box or stand by a London bus. And of course, they're all very welcome. But the fact is that the London hotel sector success is based on London's success as a world city. And as a result, the sector is one of the most profitable in the world. Now, I've recently looked at the annual returns of 18 4- to 5-star hotels in London. And the simple, very welcome fact is that hotels are making some very good money. A more unwelcome fact, though, is that none of them are paying their workers the London living wage. Now, some would argue, why should they? My answer solely on a business case is because they aren't accessing the potential to earn even more. The sector might be doing very well, but they could do even better. And that potential could be maximised by creating a workforce that is treated with respect and dignity, is paid a living wage, that enjoys investment and training and development, and whose self-esteem grows accordingly. Now, Unite works with employers in every sector of the economy to achieve those objectives. We would like to do so with the London hotel sector. The issues of social and economic justice are very high on our agenda and amongst the workers I speak to. Most of the workers I meet are on national minimum wage. Many have second jobs. Most are migrant workers or come from an established migrant community. The vast majority are women. Many have school-aged children. Most live a long way from their workplaces, often in limited living space. Many start their working day in the very early hours, with 2-hour bus journeys not uncommon. Most work for outsourced employment agencies. Many take daily painkillers to deal with the aches and pains that come with work-related upper limb disorders. And many have very little time with their families. In short, they are the working poor, and they suffer all the financial, family, and personal stress that comes with the struggle in this wonderful city of ours, which doesn't sometimes look so wonderful on the first crowded bus in the morning. They make an incredible contribution to the success of our city and the hotel sector, and they have a very strong case for economic and social justice. The demand for the living wage is a call from a moral perspective to try and rebalance the need to work with the right to an acceptable quality of life, and it is a cause which is gathering strength. Political reasons. Because these workers are the working poor and because their employers do not pay them a living wage, they have to turn to the state for whatever supplementary benefits they are entitled to. This means that the taxpayer has to foot the bill. A large bill, and a bill that is wholly a state subsidy to the hotel sector. A sector that declines to pay its way by not paying the living wage. Many of you will have noticed, and indeed may agree, that in this so-called age of austerity, there is a growing public impatience with large, profitable corporations who are effectively subsidised by the taxpayer. That's what I'm speaking of. My own view is that this impatience is growing and that the hotel sector would ignore it at its peril. Increasingly, politicians at every level and across the spectrum are calling on employers to meet their responsibilities. Unite has been trying in vain for the last 8 years to put the case to the sector both collectively, to the BHA, and individually to the major hotel brands. We have met so far with rejection and a deafening silence, which is a major disappointment to me, as I sincerely believe that we could build a positive relationship to address the concerns of hotel workers. For those of you wondering why there's been no popular outbreak of dissatisfaction amongst these workers, it's because that most employed in the sector can be described as a vulnerable workforce. I outlined earlier the demographics of the workforce. Many are scared to put their heads above the parapet for fear of victimisation, and with good reason. My own view is that the structure of the global hotel sector, with a constant drive away from property ownership and toward the outsourcing of labour, has created a vacuum in the relationship between those who work in hotels and those responsible for the brands. I have read the very worthy CSR policies of the major brands. There is a huge gap between these aspirations and workers' daily experiences. Brands cannot escape the responsibility for the consequences of the corporate structures that they are making huge profits from. If a hotel manager or a management team keeps seeking tenders from employment agencies who are already paying the bare minimum, then they must know that the race to the basement can only mean further exploitation of the workforce. Very often, these same agencies break the law in trying to meet the contracts that they've effectively underbid for. Now, I believe that we have a huge opportunity to work together to set up a universal education, training and development programs, improve paying conditions that in turn would increase the status and attractiveness of the industry to young Londoners. World tourism is a growth sector, but we cannot rest on our laurels here in the UK and assume that our market share will not decline. What we can do is increase our market share by competing on the quality of our service, delivered by a professional team from the cocktail waiter to the laundry porter. To achieve that for the benefit of the economy, the sector and the people of London, we in Unite stand ready, willing and able to play our part. We published a document in 2009 called Rooms for Change, which I've got a few copies here, in which we outline our proposals. Now, we believe that London hotels should move together towards these proposals for a central London-wide agreement so that all the major brands in this very competitive industry can compete on quality service and value for money rather than poverty wages. What we propose is a real challenge to the industry to step up to the mark, to do the right thing for the sector, the workers who depend upon the industry for their living, London and its citizens. Thanks very much for your time.
If anyone has a question immediately for Kevin and so on, I'm happy to take one question now. What we're hoping is most of the presentation will take place within the 7-minute approximate limit, and then that should give us some time for questions at the end. But if there's anyone really thinking they're going to forget a question, or they're burning to ask something of Kevin, please feel free in the next 10 seconds. Lady, halfway down on the left-hand side. There's now a microphone coming your way, please. We'll just wait for the microphone.
Can I just ask, you mentioned the Room for Change document in 2009. What was the response from the hotel groups in London to that document?
Is this on? Well, as I said, unfortunately, we've had no response at all from any of our initiatives. Nothing at all, no.
That was short and sweet on both sides. Can I take it that's the last question before our next presenter then? But there will hopefully be a little bit of time at the end in case somebody's got some other thoughts at the end of having heard all the speeches. Okay, thank you very much indeed then, Kevin. Now, next speaker is Ibrahim, who's Chief Executive of the British Hospitality Association, who again doesn't have a PowerPoint presentation, so won't test my technical skills. Fabulous.
I will test the clock, though. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. So I'm not quite sure how many of you are familiar with the BHA, as we're called. So very quickly, we are the organisation that represents about 40,000 hospitality businesses across the United Kingdom, hotels, restaurants, facilities management companies, attractions. So we are the largest trade association representing the industry in the UK. And our industry represents 2.7 million jobs across Britain. About 45% of those are under the age of 30. And Kevin is right, we have about 40-something%. I think the latest figure was about 46% of those are women. So we're very proud of our diversity in terms of the scope of the jobs that we offer. And in fact, it's interesting because in a single hotel, recently we recorded that there are 21 different entry points into working in a hotel, 21 completely different jobs that you can do. So HR, administration, front of house, all sorts of things. So it's a very, very rich industry in terms of its job offer. And we're also very proud of our industry because we have recently been looking into the amount of growth that we have secured in terms of job numbers recently. And between 2010 and 2012, the hospitality industry in Britain actually generated an additional 153,000 new jobs. That's 1 out of every 4 new jobs in the United Kingdom over a recessionary period were actually generated through the hospitality industry. And that's across the entire United Kingdom. Another quick stat for you, just to give you an understanding as to how important this industry is in terms of an employer in the UK, is that we represent no less than 5% in over 95% of all parliamentary constituencies in the UK in terms of employment. So our contribution to jobs in every parliamentary constituency in the UK falls under 5% in just 5% of the parliamentary constituencies. In other words, this is not a London-specific industry. This is an industry that touches almost every single sector, every single region of the United Kingdom. We are absolutely integrated into the UK. Now, at the end of 2011, when we actually had a look together with our Sector Skills Council, People First, and a charity in our industry called Springboard, at the number of vacancies that exist in our industry, we actually found that there was something in the region of about 17,500 vacancies in our sector at the end of 2011, which is phenomenal, considering that there's unemployment in the United Kingdom, and here's an industry that actually has these vacancies. 1 year later, at the end of 2012, in December 2012, when we actually looked at how many vacancies were in the industry, we found that the figure had risen, and there were just under 22,000 recorded vacancies in hospitality businesses across Britain by the end of December 2012. So on the one hand, here is an industry that is generating more jobs, significant employer, in fact, we're the 4th largest employer in Britain. We have 21,000 vacancies plus, that was at the end of December 2012, grown from the number of vacancies we had in the end of 2011. And yes, on the other hand, when you pick up the papers, you're seeing that there is a significant level of unemployment in the UK. And in particular, youth unemployment. 1 million young unemployed people. The figure shows that 1 out of every 4 young people in London is unemployed, has no job, no vocation. Now, these figures are very concerning, not just for our industry, but also for others who are very passionate in this area, including the Prince of Wales, and I'm glad I can see Stephen here in the back from ITP. And business in the community were very, very concerned about these figures and wanted to work with industries that can responsibly create fantastic opportunities for young people in Britain. And so one of our members, Patrick Dempsey, Managing Director of Whitbread. Whitbread owns Premier Inn, they own Costa, and they own a number of restaurants across Britain, was invited to sit on a council called the Talent Skills Council, which was chaired by the chief executive of a company called National Grid, which is an energy company. And on this board, there were a couple of other chief executives of FTSE 100 companies, Channel 4, ITV, Capgemini from the finance sector. They were all invited, about 10 to 12 chief executives of really big companies were invited to come together and talk about what could be done to actually tackle youth unemployment and give young people a chance in industries that would really help those, the development of those individuals and help to lead them into strong careers. And at that table, a number of people actually made very significant pledges, including Whitbread. Whitbread actually said, we're opening a new hotel every 10 days in the UK. Every 10 days, there's a brand new Premier Inn being opened up. We have a large number of jobs. We're probably aiming to have about 10,000 people into employment over the next 3 years. That's new jobs. And we will commit to 50% of those being for young people, so 16 to 24-year-olds. And a number of the other chief executives at the table made a similar commitment. A great story. Premier Inn then Patrick Dempsey turned to the board and said, actually, if we were to take this back with us and drive this initiative through our industries, our own sectors, I think that this country could effectively wipe out youth unemployment in Britain. We could do that. And not only could we do that, but we could actually work together, and we, the large employers who know how to do things very, very well, can actually help to educate the small and medium-sized enterprises so that we can have structured work placements, so that we can do apprenticeships really, really well, and so that our jobs can be the most celebrated jobs, not only in the UK, but also worldwide. And just to underline, our ambition at the BHA is twofold. One, to make sure that British hospitality is the best in the world, best in class in every class, including our employment, our training, and our development. And secondly, our ambition is to ensure that by 2020, our industry creates a further 300,000 new jobs, which we know we can do, which would bring our total employment figure up to 3 million in the UK. So that's our aim and our targets. So Patrick Dempsey brought that initiative to us with the blessing of the Prince and business in the community. And we embraced that initiative in July 2012. And basically, the initiative is very simple. It's called the Big Hospitality Conversation. And the Big Hospitality Conversation really does underline the word conversation. Because clearly, as I said earlier, if on the one hand we have all of these job opportunities and vacancies, and on the other hand there are young unemployed people in the UK, something is not correct in terms of matching those two groups together. So the idea was to actually start opening dialogue and conversation with all of the right people that can actually help to bridge that gap and to help to be a real conduit for young careers in our industry. And that makes good business sense for us because, after all, we want to be successful not just today, not just tomorrow, but in the long term, in the future as well. So it's really important that we get the right people, right talent, and ensure their development is absolutely the best in order to attain our sustainability as companies. And since July last year, we've held 10 events across the United Kingdom to enable or facilitate this conversation between young people and the industry. And basically what we do is we bring together about 100 employers. We signed an agreement with the Department of Work and Pensions. We work very closely with the Minister of Employment and with a number of other parties. And we bring young unemployed people into the room. And we mix them all up on round tables. So on one table, the chief execs will sit with their HR directors, with young job seekers, and we will actually facilitate a conversation with a 2-hour sort of intervention on the stage, where we bring young people who have had wonderful success stories in terms of their apprenticeships, their work placements, or their job career developments in the industry. And believe me, if you stand there and you watch these, we've had 15,000 of these youngsters involved in these events so far, and industry leaders. And when you hear what they have to say, people really do pull out the tears and they pull out the tissues, and it's so tear-jerking, it's heartwarming to hear such wonderful stories of individuals who have really enjoyed their careers in our industry at such a young age. And they are so inspiring to young people who sit at the tables as well. And then we get employers to make a pledge, to say how many of these structured work placements, structured apprenticeships, and jobs will you commit to doing and working with us to ensure that they really do attain the best in terms of development and training and all areas of that person's development in that company. And so far, in less than a year, we have generated over 32,000 jobs for young people in Britain between the ages of 16 and 24, which was applauded by many other sectors. Now other sectors are actually approaching the BHA and saying, teach us how you've done this. Help us to understand so that we can now take this through to the energy sector, through to the construction sector, through to the banking sector. They want to learn how we are treating our employees, how we are helping that development and training and career development in order that they can actually achieve the same, so that ultimately we can wipe out youth unemployment in the United Kingdom and ensure that every person entering our industry has a very successful, fruitful time and has a wonderful career opportunity ahead of them. So I'd be very happy to take any questions on that. Just to finish off, I'd like to tell you that we're now working on a target of creating a further 60,000 opportunities for young people through the Big Hospitality Conversation by the end of next year. And we invite everyone to get engaged with us at the BHA. Dialogue is very important to us. After all, we've called our initiative the Big Hospitality Conversation, and no one is excluded from that conversation. And we encourage everybody to help us, support us, and get engaged. Thank you.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm now going to go and try and do something with the PowerPoint. In the meantime, do we have a quick question while I'm setting up the next presentation, please? Quick question, comment from someone, please.
Hello, here. You mentioned that for you it's very important to find the right people for the right places. So I would like to ask, how important is it for you that someone has an educational background in tourism, like a degree or a master's degree and so on? And how close are you with educational institutions to find maybe people to have some presentations in classrooms and so on?
Can you hear me? No? Yes? Yes?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, well, I think that just to go back to the number that I mentioned in terms of the different types of jobs, just to enter to work within a hotel alone, and our industry is very rich, it's much richer than just hotels. 21 different types of entry routes into a given hotel in terms of jobs. Now, some of those will require different types of educational requirements, qualifications, and others won't. Others will just require passion, dedication, and the right attitude. And this industry is actually bending over backwards to actually give those individuals all the training that they require and helping to get people through the pipeline in terms of that development. And there are so many of our chief executives in our industry who actually entered the industry without a single qualification and have today become chief executives, managing directors of FTSE 100 companies in the United Kingdom. And they're very proud of that. And they want others to actually know that in some cases you do need qualifications, and particularly specific qualifications, and in others you don't. So therefore, it's very important for us to actually work with educational establishments and to ensure that, no matter what level of entry into our industry, that you do have the right qualifications to be able to get into that particular job. The Big Hospitality Conversation actually works very closely with educational establishments. So some of the events that we're now organising looking forward to next year actually take place in colleges, technical colleges, but also in universities. So one of our partners is the Sheffield Hallam University, for example, where we're doing a lot of work together with them. So we're working very closely with them. But I just want to say one other thing, if I may. I think that our industry is equally as important for those who are involved in getting an educational qualification. And let me tell you why. I was actually in Manchester, talking about Manchester University, 2 weeks ago. And I was in the Hilton Hotel, and I went to get a cup of coffee. And there was a young lady standing there with a big smile, so friendly. So I said, "Hi, how are you? How long have you been working here?" And she said, "Oh, since September, actually, since the time I started my chemistry degree at university, here in Manchester University." And I said, "Wow, great. So wouldn't it have been more sensible for you to find a job related to chemistry or working in a lab or something?" And she said, "That would not have worked for me, because the flexibility that I need to be able to do my studies in terms of the timings that I would need to be able to work, I cannot think of another sector that would be able to provide me with these types of working hours to enable me to study." And she said, interestingly, if I didn't have this job, because today I need to pay university fees and I need to take care of myself, I have to support myself in order to be able to get through university. If I didn't have this job in Hilton, in this hotel, I would not be able to do my degree. And I thought that that was really telling as to the importance of our industry in terms of providing not just jobs and opportunities and career development for young people, but in some cases now enabling people to actually go to university as well.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, I think we need to move on because I want to be fair to the other speakers as well, because their time is beginning to run out. So I've put the TUI presentation up here. This is not Andy Smyth, by the way. Andy had a terrible time on the M1 this morning and very kindly found one of his colleagues who was able to make the presentation for him. So this is Sean Owens, who I think is Sustainable Product Manager for TUI Travel, who's going to represent Andy's presentation.
Thanks,
Thank you.
John. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I'm not Andy. I haven't had some aborted hair replacement therapy, for those of you that know him. Bad joke, just to start off. I guess I am a good standing, nonetheless. I work closely with Andy. Sustainability cuts across all parts of our business at TUI Travel PLC. For example, we've been working with Andy on the development of NVQ qualifications, which are now submitted to Ofqual. And we'll initially roll those out via our airline and also retail, and then across the business in 2015, it's anticipated. I guess the second reason why I'm not a bad stand-in is I am the product of a career in hotels and tourism. I started as a waiter in 1991 in the States with the Ritz-Carlton. I worked for the Four Seasons. And I got into management, showing that I really wanted to make a career. I actually gave up degree studies at that time to pursue it full-time as a career option. And I've had a wonderful career over almost 25 years now. But, the opportunities are clearly there. It's a fantastic industry. And, as I say, I think I am, if you like, living proof that there is a genuine career there for people to pursue, not just, although it's got its value, of course, in supplementing incomes alongside education. So what do we do at TUI in terms of vocational training? I first read these slides about 40 minutes ago, so please give me a little breathing space here, a little room. I'll just skirt through the key issues. Andy started over 25 years ago in hospitality training. We have formal programs within TUI that cover, and I'm not sure how well you can see this in the back, but travel service apprenticeships in all our Thomson shops, customer service apprenticeships and diplomas in the call centres and customer-facing opportunities, operational roles, rather. Childcare, it's very important that there are appropriate qualifications, of course, in that area. And team leading and management apprenticeships, too. So we've had great success so far. Andy has been in his role for a good few years. When I used to work for Thomas Cook about 6 years ago, I met him the first time around there, and his enthusiasm really caught my attention then, and he's a fantastic person to do what he does in terms of energizing people within our business, but also engaging those out with our business on this important matter. Our apprenticeships have Ofsted rating as good, and we've won awards for those at individual and at organisational level. So we have a full range of development programs and career opportunities, career support for all our internal candidates at all levels, including mentoring and coaching support. As you can see, over the last 5 years, there's been a total of 2,253 apprenticeships. The majority of those are in the 19 to 24 age range. We do have approximately a third, interestingly, at the 16 to 18 age group, and 180 at the 25 plus age range. In terms of graduate career opportunities, we're, as a FTSE 100 company and also considered the world's leading travel and tourism organisation, we do certainly attract, you could say, the cream of the crop. And we stand out. You can't possibly see the detail there, but basically it's just a pictorial that is showing that the sector overall does perform very well above, for example, consulting and consumer goods, and that TUI is clearly recognised for its progress. Within TUI, there are success stories. As such, we've got a number of our senior management team directors that started as apprenticeships, such as our MD of the Le Boat business. It's based in the UK, not in France, as it may sound. It's Barge Holidays. Jeremy Ellis, he's actually my director. He's the marketing and e-commerce director. He started as a graduate trainee. And we promote vacancies internally and externally through the site tuitraveljobs.co.uk. And we also provide opportunities to young people and those returning to work to have fulfilling and exciting careers. In terms of next steps, Andy I spoke to him briefly on the phone, and he really wanted me to emphasise these points here, that we need employers, as Ufi was saying, in terms of the big hospitality conversation, other conversations certainly need to be taking place. Employers and groups need to do more, and we need to address the recognition of our profession in the sector of travel and tourism. There needs to be a real concerted effort by all employers to work together on the skills and make sure that people value what they're doing and gain the qualifications. And we need to look at coordinating the efforts, look at a travel sector partnership that provides real structure and opportunity on a much wider scale. And the role of the government, a key point here is that travel and tourism, it doesn't have the recognition as a profession that it clearly deserves, and it needs to be given the room, further room to grow, given it's such an important part of our economy. And the government also needs to view support the sector as a really great place to start work and continue a career. And it's not just a stopping point. It can, as Sophie has said, be proved to be a most effective stopping off point, or something that complements other activities, whether that be educational or taking care of family. But for those that aspire to achieve in travel and tourism, they need to feel that real sense of pride and purpose and recognition for what they're doing. And just one final thought. There are, and I've worked with dozens, I'm so proud of the people that I've worked with over the years, whether that be alongside them or managing them, mentoring them, helping them through challenges. But there are so many energetic, motivated and capable people. And they're looking at travel and tourism as a career choice. Some of them join, but when they do, how good are we at keeping them? You know, can we possibly take people that may have come into travel and tourism just as something whilst they were looking for different opportunities, but we've really got to work to make sure that we keep the brightest, the best people, so that we can have, whether it's here in the UK or internationally, travel and tourism to stand out as the most attractive, viable and rewarding career that it truly is. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Sean. Another idiotic run across the stage while I ask if any question at all, please, for Sean, while I try and set up the next presentation. Please, because otherwise everybody's going to watch me setting this up, and that could be embarrassing. In fact, it's about to be embarrassing. No one? Yes, gentleman, lady in the middle. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Sean. I just wanted to ask about, as well as your directly employed staff, what about your supply chain in hotels overseas? I'm sure that's a big challenge, but what sort of steps can you or are you taking?
Thanks, Rebecca. It's a while since I've seen you, and I hear there's another one on the way, so congratulations. Yeah, I mean, obviously, as Tom said in First Choice, there are two primary brands of to UK and Ireland, so our holidays are overseas. So that doesn't mean that we're not concerned about the value of the tourism sector here in the UK, because there's so much overlap, of course. But to address your specific question, we in the UK, for example, we have about 2,000 hotels that we contract. This clearly will run into the hundreds of thousands of employees, and it's vital that we do whatever we can to ensure that there are meaningful career opportunities and strong and robust employment conditions in place. I actually came here today to speak on a panel at 12 o'clock regarding certification, and that is essentially what forms my answer. In the outbound travel and indeed the domestic, for example, the Green Tourism Business Scheme, I'll be speaking alongside later on. Part of the criteria for achieving an award within sustainability certification for hotels, it's vital that employment conditions are in scope, which they very much are with Travel Life, the scheme that we work with primarily. And TUI is leading in this area. We have, for example, at the moment, 27% of our UK contracted hotels already at award level. That represents about 47% of our customers staying in hotels with those awards. So it's a marathon, not a sprint as such, but we are getting there. And it's really important that, just in terms of responsible, sustainable supply chain management, that we take this to the very end, right down to the last hotel.
Thanks very much indeed. Thank you very much, John. The next speaker you'll see, ladies and gentlemen, is Claire Steiner, who's representing Global Travel and Tourism Partnership and is also representing the Institute of Travel and Tourism Education and Training.
Good morning. Oh, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I kind of had things prepared, obviously, like most people, but actually living a bit about myself. I'm actually an HR professional, and I've done this for 25 years, and the last 16 of which have been in this wonderful industry. And as such, I have a good, sort of sense of what it is to be an employer in the industry, having worked with a number of employers from a small online travel agency to a major .com to a large tour operating business. And then, on the other hand, I also chair the Education Training Committee for the Institute of Travel and Tourism, which is the professional membership body in the UK. And through that, I have got the opportunity to work alongside training companies, sector skills councils, other associations like ABTA, and particularly things like the universities and the colleges that actually try and deliver the future generation of workforce for us. The ITT gets involved in a number of different initiatives, which I wanted to highlight. And I think one of the key things I also find is we have an awful lot of good things that are going on in this industry. The employers and the universities and the colleges are delivering some fantastic results. But I think one of our things we're guilty of is we don't shout loud enough about it. And we don't tell people what we're doing. And it's a bit of a soapbox of mine that we need to do more and let people know what we're doing. The ITT gets involved, as we said, in a number of different things. This week alone, we're collaborating with World Travel Market on their student programme. On Thursday, there's over 1,000 students coming here, which is something in itself. Part of that will be a number of different clinics on things like CVs and how to market yourself in the industry and how to talk to employers and how to sell yourself. And for the last 5 years, we've also delivered a student conference called Future You. And this conference is actually an opportunity for young professionals in the industry to get up on stage and talk to the young students that are there. And for the last 2 years, we've been using the winners, the recipients of the TTG, the Travel Trade Gazette's 30 Under 30 campaign, who are 30 young individuals, all under the age of 30, who have been nominated as future travel leaders. And getting them up on stage is fantastic because it allows these young people to see how much can be achieved in such a short time. So alongside my role at the ITT and sitting on a number of committees, including things like the ABTA committee, and Vicky will go on to what the great work that ABTA is doing, I'm also involved in a thing called the Global Travel and Tourism Partnership. I came upon this about 8 years ago when they approached the ITT about an endorsement that they wanted from an association, and I fell in love with it. 25 years ago, the American Express Foundation realised that at that time, there were no formal qualifications for travel and tourism in the UK. So they set up a scheme, and they set up a curriculum, and they introduced it down in Brighton. 25 years on, over 2 million children around the world have actually learnt about travel and tourism in schools. We're in 12 countries, and we're supported by 10 different leading global employers. How many people here have heard about us? And that's my point. I became the UK director for the GCTP scheme 3 years ago, and we are starting to fly the flag. As I said, I've had a number of slides that I was going to talk about, and predominantly about this, because this is a global industry. We're hearing a lot about what's going on in the UK, and I think the UK is often seen as best practice for many of the other countries. But I think it's important to recognise that this is a global industry and the opportunities that are there for young people around the world. So, as it says, this is all about introducing young people to the opportunities and the careers in travel and tourism at a time when they're starting to think about it. Not when they're 20, but actually when they're 14, 15 years old. We actually go into public schools in countries like Kenya, Brazil, Canada, and we work with the governments and we work with the teachers and we ensure that they have an understanding. The reason that the companies are doing this is for, say, in a hotel, when they are launching and they're growing in a particular country, they have to employ local people. It's part of the sustainable program, and it's absolutely right that they do. But many of these countries don't have the skills base there because the schools themselves, the school systems themselves, aren't delivering a curriculum. And that's what we do through the Global Travel and Tourism Partnership. These are the players, and as I said, all big global players that actually support this industry, and we work very closely with them. It's the CEOs and the senior players in these companies that actually devote their time. And every year we have a conference where we get 2 students and one of their teachers from each country to come to a student conference in Europe. And the senior players come in, a bit like the big hospitality question. conversation, sorry. They come down and they sit and they spend time with these young people. And it's the most amazing thing to see. You arrive in a lovely location in the south of France, and the UK team turn up, and they're all about, well, this is my third holiday this year with my parents, this is great. And then the South African team turn up, never left their village before that morning, let alone got on a plane. Within 4 days, they are friends for life, and they've changed each other's lives. And that, to me, is one of the other things that we don't talk about enough in travel and tourism, is how it breaks down boundaries, it preaches tolerance and understanding of each other's cultures, and that's why I'm so passionate about this scheme. So I'm not going to talk for too much longer, because I could go on, as you could probably guess. I'm quite passionate about it. I'll take lots of questions at the end. Please come and talk to me. But at the end of the day, I think we have a role as employers, we have a role as associations, and we have a role as educational institutions to work together to actually make sure that we're providing the next generation with the skills and the opportunities that they need.
Same format as usual. Does somebody have a question for Claire? Yes, gentlemen, lady, sorry, just near the back. Do apologise.
Hi, it's a search I've done lately, and I was just very curious what you think about it. Well, I applaud what you say, and I think it's really important to link educational institutions and the industry. I found it very interesting that when I went online and was looking for a job in the tourism industry, there are not specific sites just for the tourism industry. So you get them to an educational level where they start looking for a job. I currently belong to 14 different job sites, some of whom don't even have tourism as an option, or travel. They don't have anything like that as an option when you want to put in your skills. How do you see that? How do you see us overcoming that kind of problem with linkages?
I think one of the issues, and I should have mentioned this, is I think, and it's a challenge that we need to overcome, is the fragmentation of our industry. So this is a sector that has hundreds of different industries within it. A lot of them are working in isolation, and a lot of them are working together. And we need to do more working together. There needs to be more conversations so that we are actually aware of what is going on. Now, the ITT is a big believer in not being the answer to everything, but knowing someone who does know the answer. And so we sort of, if you like, we work with partners, one of whom is ABTA, and I don't want to take away because I know Vicky's going to talk about it, but the Sector Skills Council, People First, actually have created a very useful careers website for both, because it's such a huge sector. Again, you're talking tourism, the global tourism sector includes hospitality, includes travel, it includes, tour operations and car hire and everything else. And they've created 2 separate websites which actually are very good as a careers guidance. And so, for instance, people like the ITT will actually signpost people to those sites. We don't have all the answers, but as I said, we hope we would have that. It's just a question, actually, I think, of how we promote it and how we keep actually advertising the good stuff, which is what I said at the very beginning, that is going on. And I gladly can give you guys hundreds of websites for you to look at the end, but Vicky will be mentioning it in hers as well, I know.
Thank you very much indeed. So our last but certainly not least speaker is Vicky Hall, Business Development Manager at ABTA, who's going to talk about, as you can see, employment in travel and tourism.
Morning, everyone. Good to be here today. A lot of the things I will be talking about today have tied in very nicely with what the previous speakers have been saying. ABTA has a strategic vision. We work with 8 strategic goals, and one of those is rewarding jobs. We see rewarding jobs in the industry both at home and overseas, and our role as a trade association for the industry is to work with our members to achieve that goal. To this end, we've designed a strategy to establish our relationship with educators and develop the policy argument for the importance of jobs in the industry. And I will say that perhaps the industry has not been quite as good as it could be with linking with educators in the past, and that is central to our policy and strategy going forward. ABTA is the largest trade association in the UK. We have 1,300 members in over 500 outlets, and we did some research last year focusing on the outbound travel sector, where we showed that there are just under 625,000 jobs directly employed in outbound travel, and this supports 1.6 million jobs in the wider economy, so it's huge. So it's not just inbound travel that we were focusing on, which we were trying to say to the government at that stage. There's a wide range of careers, as has been mentioned today, and while very often the starting salaries can be on the lower end, very often the career progression is rapid, and that is something that we need to make the point about that in the travel industry particularly. So where you might go into one of the professions and it takes many, many years to get to the point that you want to get to, in the travel industry we see so many people, young people, who've progressed extremely fast in the industry and got to very sort of significant salary levels in a very short period of time. Good effort and talent is rewarded in this industry, and this is a good point that we have to make. Our members have also reported that the level of skills required, obviously, as the travel industry has become increasingly sophisticated over the past few years, the level of skill required is also becoming more sophisticated, which is why we are developing this policy of working with educators in the future. We're also working with our members to identify the key skills and future skills needs in the industry. Let me just go back. There was a recent piece of research from the World Travel and Tourism Council which made the very good point that as an industry we are not very good at employing for those key skills and identifying what those key skills and future key skills are. So we'll be working with our members over the next few years to identify what they are. As Claire mentioned, we've worked with People First to showcase careers in the industry, and we've also worked with Travel Weekly and various other partners on a product which I'll show you in a moment to showcase careers in the industry. We're also developing our strategy with educators, as I've mentioned before. As Chewy mentioned previously, the Travel Life Sustainability System for hotels and accommodations, which is run by ABTA, this is a certification system dedicated to achieving sustainable practices within the tourism, very much overseas and both overseas and in the UK. And very central to that is labour practice, human rights and fair business practices. So you will not get the award unless you are committed to those areas. As I mentioned before, Take Off and Travel, this is the second year we've done it. It's a fantastic resource. It's both online and in sort of printed form. This showcases careers in the industry, and what we wanted to do with this is showcase the very wide range of careers in the industry. We even showcase our own staff at ABTA. We've got quite a wide range of careers at ABTA ourselves, and we find that students and people coming into the industry, as has been mentioned, really engage with the case studies. They like to read about other people that have come in and what their route to entry was. So Take Off and Travel showcases those careers. So there's sales, marketing, IT, product managers, and it also gives you advice about qualifications and what the qualifications that you could do to come into the industry are, and gives practical advice such as how to write your CV, how to keep up to date with what's going on by reading the trade press so that you can impress in your interview, what free training is available for the particular interview you're going to. So it's a fantastic resource for students and those wanting to go into the industry. As Claire mentioned, we work with People First, who are the Sector Skills Council for both our industry and hospitality, tourism, leisure, travel, passenger transport. It's got a huge footprint, but they've developed a very interactive careers map, almost like a tube map in a way, where you can track your career path, your sort of proposed career path. It's called Careers That Move, and it's on the People First's website. That's the address to get there. So, for example, you might not be able to see this. Yes, you probably can. So if you want to become a travel consultant, it shows you the various routes that you can go in there. And then if you click on those particular areas, it also will give you advice on where you might get career qualification and advice as well. So it's a very good resource. Excuse me. And that's all I've got to say in terms of my slides. Just on a personal note, I myself also waitressed when I was at university, and I still always say to my great friend who actually employed me in that waitressing job, that it was the best training I ever got, because it really brings you out of your shell. You have to become confident, you have to speak to people, you have to deal with difficult situations, and that kind of experience you cannot buy, that customer service experience. It really stands you in good stead for the rest of your life. So even if you don't stay in that industry, it will always be useful to you. Thank you very much.
Hello, gentlemen. Do we have a question for Vicky as well, please? Yes. Second row down. The microphone's coming forward as we speak. We've also been told by Harold that we can have an extra 10 minutes if we wish, because we're running out of time, and this is a huge subject we've not even started to scrape the surface of yet. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yes.
I have worked at a college for some years before, not anymore, but the colleges are often under huge pressure when it comes to meeting specific targets, etc., and delivery of a very frequently changing curriculum. So obviously, through that, very often, the actual communication with the industry when it comes to specifically the travel and tourism departments can be pushed aside or put into sort of a secondary agenda. I'm not saying that all colleges do that. I know it's something that is a constant problem, constant pressure, obviously. Do you think that there is an option perhaps to entice the industry to initiate contact and to develop communication channels with the colleges, with the deliverers, to actually set that ball rolling, considering that sometimes also there is maybe not quite a clear thing which employers would be interested to actually communicate? Thank you.
I'll answer that. Is this working? From ABTA's point of view, we have actually developed resources for colleges and universities over the years. Perhaps where it's lacking is the communication of that and trying to get that to the colleges, and we need to work with the colleges to find out how to do that. We're in the process of developing a partnership scheme at the moment for those colleges and universities that are interested, but for the last 3 to 4 years, we have had an All About ABTA Live a seminar at ABTA where we've invited college and university lecturers along to give them an update about what's happening in the industry, the very sort of latest information. And they come along and they hear from all our senior heads of department on sustainability, the legal side of things, etc. We are working on that as part of our projects going forward. But yes, we'd be interested in finding out from you what the best communication channels for that would be, because that's perhaps where it's fallen down in the past.
Okay, so I think that does now give us, unless anybody else wants to contribute to that, that gives us about 10 minutes now in case anybody has any general comments or general questions, observations they wish to make. Please don't let me down now. Yes, the two. Oh, wonderful. It's always good when hands go up, so the microphones are on the way.
Hi, Catherine Mack, travel writer specialising in sustainable tourism. It seems to me that there's a slight elephant in the room here, in that all of the hospitality organisations didn't address the big Unite issue, which is not one hotel addressed the proposals for change. And I'd like to hear some of the views on that. And for example, in terms of the big conversation, when you're going to have a big conversation with Unite.
Well, I'll stand up because you can see me. Can you hear me okay? Yep. Well, this is a central question. I mean, first of all, the facts I outlined to you earlier on are the facts. It's as simple as that. The industry is not paying its way. It's mostly paying national wage. Most of the workers I talked to, and I was speaking to 30 last night, have no recognition of the industry that our colleagues have painted, which is a true picture. I'm not denying it's a true picture, and it's a very worthy picture. But it's a picture that's only true of a certain sector of the industry. The vast majority of workers in London trying to earn a living in the hospitality industry, hotels in particular in London, are on national minimum wage. They have no career opportunities. They have no training opportunities. And to give you an example, I was speaking to as someone who's worked in a bar, in the food and beverage in a London hotel for the last 17 years since he was 30 years of age. He's presently earning £6.96, and he's not had one career opportunity advancement in that hotel in those years. Now, I'm not making this up. All I'm saying to the industry is, first of all, why don't you honour the United Nations Global Compacts and allow your workers to speak to trade unions? I'm persona non grata. I can't get into a hotel to talk to workers because I'm not allowed to. The brands will say, no, we don't want you here talking to our workers. Go away. I can't even get to talk to workers in the hotel. Now, I ask that question. Why is that such a bad thing? If workers say, listen, we're not interested, please go away, fine. We're not going to waste our time. But we don't even get into the hotel because we're not allowed into the hotel. Now, that's against the Global Compact a lot of the brands have signed up to. It's against the British Hospitality Association's agreement with the European employers and the European trade unions to gain access, to allow access for trade union representation to those workers who want to listen to them. Now, if we start building on that relationship first of all, then we can get a true picture of what workers want or don't want. It's not my view, it's their view that counts. Now, I've listened to heart-rending stories over the last 8 years, some that break your heart about people's struggle to survive in London in this day and age on a minimum wage. It's dreadful. It's completely avoidable. Now, the figures that Ufi gave us about 1 in 4 jobs in the hospitality industry, recent figures indicate that means that the hospitality industry has been subsidised by the taxpayer by about £1 billion a year because they're not paying a living wage. Now, I'm saying every indication of political, social and economic justice and business reasons why we should start addressing that problem, sit down, be able to sit down. I've got in my bag 2 letters that are written to IHG and the Radisson Edwardian on September the 9th saying, can we talk to you? I've not had a response yet. And I don't look like we get a response either. Now, this is not an acceptable situation of any level at all. All we're saying is that workers should have the opportunity to have a voice in their own sector, and at the moment they haven't got it. And they haven't got it because the structure of the industry is dictating to the well-intentioned professionals industry, and I'll include all our colleagues on the table here, they don't have the power to say to the owners of these hotels, you should let the union in. But what they should do, I think, is follow the advice of the Mayor of London, the Prime Minister, and the Leader of the Opposition, and say, church leaders, community workers, community organisations, and say, please talk to them about raising the standards in the industry. And then we get to affordability. Now, if you said that they aim for the best, well, I know what the best agreement in the world is, and it's in New York City, where all the major brands are existing now. In New York City, they've got full recognition in 85% of the 3- and 4-star hotels in New York. The starting wage in 2014 for those workers will be $50,000. Now, they can afford it in New York on top of paying pensions, healthcare, and we in London are paying national minimum wage without any other costs, then I'm saying there's a disparity there. So if we really want the best, let's aim for the best. It's not going to happen tomorrow. What we're saying is that we want to talk to the industry as a group, because we don't want the competition breaking out over wages. What we want is everyone to move together. And we think that if you have a citywide agreement where everyone signed up to sitting down, talking about how we can introduce the living wage, introduce recognition and collective bargaining, and to start improving conditions and affording people training and development opportunities, that will be a good start. And all we're asking for is a dialogue and to enable workers to have a voice. I mean, that's all we're asking for at this stage.
Okay. Can I just give Ufi a chance maybe to respond first of all and then open it up to the floor?
Sure, thank you. I think there's a big difference between having a voice and deciding who you use that voice to speak to. So I would just like to emphasize that I think every single individual working in our industry in the United Kingdom has a voice and is encouraged to use that voice. And the second thing I'd like to say is that it's really important to dispel misperceptions and incorrect and inaccurate statements with facts. Now, the fact of the matter is that in the United Kingdom, by law, companies are required to pay at the very basic floor pay level national minimum wage. That would be for the lowest possible amount that could be paid. That's by law. And all of our members absolutely comply with the law, all of them. And in fact, as has been mentioned by Claire and by Vicky and by Sean and by me, even when individuals come into our industry at the lowest skill level, the progression and the speed with which they actually move up is quite remarkable. Now, there may be the one or two odd cases for whatever the other reasons are, which Kevin has mentioned, out of the 2.7 million people. But generally speaking, we are very proud of our industry's employment practices and the fact that they are all compliant with the law in this country. London Living Wage is a voluntary scheme, as is emphasised by the Mayor and the Prime Minister and by others. The area where all of the government agree that employers are responsible to their employees is on national minimum wage. And we absolutely support that at the British Hospitality Association. And where it is right for that particular company to embrace the London Living Wage, and by the way, this is not only true of the hospitality industry or the travel and tourism industry, it's true of every single other sector that operates in London, very few of whom have actually embraced the London Living Wage. Where it is right for that company to do so, they will do so. And they're encouraged to do so. And on the final point, I'm trying to ensure I answer all the points that Kevin raised in his second speech. I would just say that when we stand up in public and we talk about having the big hospitality conversation, that relates to dialogue. In other words, we are open to dialogue. We are open to hear and listen. And I have to say, Kevin, I don't think I've ever had any communication from you, have I?
You're British Hospitality Association, have you?
But I haven't. And I'm happy to give you my email address and my telephone number. But I just want to emphasize that our industry is an industry that is a remarkable industry in terms of what we are doing to develop people, to give them a responsible working practice and the right levels of pay. Where there are economic realities, we always embrace them and work with our people. And that we're very proud of it. And I actually want to applaud Vicky for saying, and I think she's right, and Claire, and Sean, for saying probably the thing that we haven't done best is actually to celebrate how good we are. And I think that's an area that we're very focused on now, in actually showing and talking about how good we are. And just one final comment, if I may, which relates back to the colleges and the schools and the teachers. You know, we've been engaging with huge numbers of colleges and schools around the country. And what we found is that many educators are actually put under pressure to provide careers advice, where perhaps actually they're so academically minded, they are academicians after all, it might actually be unfair to expect academics to provide career advice to youngsters. It just seems to be a cultural misfit. So it doesn't really matter how much you provide that information and the tools to the educators. Perhaps what we should be doing is, with the blessing of those schools, actually putting in more of our people into those schools and colleges so that they can talk to the young people. And through the Big Hospitality Conversation Initiative, we've actually been developing a group of young ambassadors together with a charity called Springboard. Huge number of young ambassadors, and those young people are actually going into schools and colleges and talking to people of their own peer groups about the opportunities that exist in the industry and their experience in terms of their progression and the excitement of working in there. So I just thought it would, just to say, perhaps we shouldn't expect too much from educators. Perhaps we need to provide more support to them, and we're very willing to do that. And we have a vast pool of young people who are very eager in coming into universities and schools and colleges and talking to their peers and helping them to see the opportunities available.
Thank you very much indeed. So, ladies and gentlemen, just as I say, just before I invite another contribution, isn't it that you're supposed to say you heard it here first? So I believe you've heard it here first, that an offer has been made by the BHA to talk to Kevin and Unite and make them part of the big hospitality conversation. So perhaps if nothing else, and I'm sure there has been a lot else, this has been a good morning for all of us, I think. Sorry, we had another gentleman here who wanted to contribute.
Good. thought he was timing me. Good morning. My name's Colin O'Neill. I work for Advantage Travel Centres, which is the UK's largest independent travel group. I guess we probably employ about 5,000 people. One thing's quite good. I won't actually need to watch Question Time this week. I've already seen half of it, I think. What I'd like to ask a question, I think I'm bought into this. Certainly from our point of view, we do a lot of work in terms of training people when they come into the organisation, but nevertheless the talent coming into the organisation is weak. I'm fully committed. What I'd like to know, and I'm going away from here today with some advice and lessons from you, is that each of you was in charge of the whole of the industry, okay, in complete control. What is the one thing you would do immediately to solve this problem, given I've bought into the problem that we have?
Fabulous final question. We have, ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you, 4.5 minutes to answer the question. Who would like to start?
I think training and development, I think we need to sort of focus on training and development and make the business case for it. We worked with People First and TUI some years back to show that an apprentice sold 17% more in the business when they'd been trained. So if you make that business case to the industry, it will translate, hopefully, and showcase that best practice. That's what we as a trade association can do. Then it will promote, hopefully, the training and development that is needed for the staff, and also it makes the staff feel valued and more productive.
Thank you very much. Are we going along the table, or are people hoping we're not going along the table?
Gosh, I mean, no, I don't think I could ever answer that in one question, but I'll try. For me, I think with my HR hat on as much as all my other hats, it's got to be about communication, and it's got to be about us having the knowledge and the understanding of what's out there and being able to apply it, not just within a UK level, but actually globally as well, and ensuring that people have the access to that knowledge. How we do that, of course, is a whole other question, and I could go on for hours about the things that we're all doing individually. But again, I think this is what this has highlighted, is that, you know, we are doing all these things, and maybe we need to have more conversations between us. There are conversations going on, but maybe more of that needs to happen to be able to drive those messages home. So it's a sort of overarching one, really.
I guess, although primarily my scope is outside of the UK, but if I was in charge, although that doesn't mean you have a magic wand to change everything. If I did have a magic wand, I guess it would be that the government would truly give the recognition to the industry, the sector that it deserves. If I was in charge, I'd try and ensure, similar to Vicky, that there's the training and qualifications, that there's an absolute robust national or unified approach across the industry, and supported by government to ensure that people truly belong, or have a greater sense of belonging, and make meaningful careers that are open to them.
I think if the question is relating to what we would do as an industry ourselves, so therefore giving government a bit of an excuse to not do much, as they don't do to support us anyway, I would say that empowering every single individual that works in our sector, because we have, as I said, 2.7 million people that work in our industry, empowering them with the right communication channels and the tools to actually, and the right sort of framework to be able to drive change themselves. Because we are, and I think we're already doing that, greater communication and ensuring that every single one of them can actually take the initiatives in their own hands would create remarkable change. They all have parents, they all have friends, they've all got access to schools and colleges, they've all got access to everyone, and just empowering them and helping them to actually get that communication across, I think would create a fundamental tidal wave of change in our industry. And we're very excited that, looking at the initiatives that are being run by APTA, by GTTP, ITT, the BHA, the Big Compensation, I think we're actually at the start of that tidal wave. So I'm very excited. I think it's happening now.
Thank you very much. And finally, Kevin.
Well, I think first of all that the world tourism sector is going to continue to grow, and so it provides wonderful opportunity around the globe for career opportunities, and we've heard about some of them. I think, though, here in the UK, in order to attract the best possible talent, what we've got to do is make the industry more attractive by improving paying conditions and therefore status. Because one of the things the workers in the hotel sector don't seem to are craving and don't seem to have is the kind of status that should be afforded by the rest of the economy. And I think part of the answer is lifelong training and continual opportunity for career development. And I think those factors together will make a huge difference.
Thank you very much indeed. And I did cut one poor gentleman off who had a question before we got onto the original one and so on, and I therefore thought I'd let him have the last word with his question or his comment.
It's very generous.
I thought so.
Thank you. Andy Rutherford from Fresh Eyes People-to-People Travel. It's really going back to the beginning of the discourse. And clearly there's an industry which is committed to sustainability, to strengthening responsible approaches to tourism, and it would appear to employment and the workplace. And I suppose, just to bring back to the first statement, to encourage you to go beyond, in theory, the approach to and commitment to the minimum wage, but actually to what is also in law, the commitments within the UK and most of the outbound destinations that people are working with, which is a commitment to as part of the compact that Kevin was speaking with, the core labour standards. And they're not just about wages. They're about the right to have a discourse, have a dialogue, but have a right to association as well. And those are totally committed to by this country. They're enshrined in the International Labour Organization, which is the bringing together of employers, governments, and employees through trade union representation. So I would encourage you all to not just support the minimum wage, but in your discourse, in your dialogue, which is clearly starting from here, which is wonderful, to embrace the core labour standards, because they are the law.
Wonderful. I think that's probably a nice final point at which I think, first of all, I'd like to thank on your behalf our panel today, all 5 of them, for excellent contributions. And I think also promise you on behalf of everyone here, this is the beginning of the conversation, not the end of the conversation. So thank you very much indeed for your attendance. Harold.
Thanks very much, John. It definitely will be the beginning of this issue. It's extraordinary. It had nearly 100 people come through this session this morning, way beyond their expectations, and you can be sure that we'll be returning to this item for the next few years. I'd also just like to invite you to our reception on Wednesday night at Tower Bridge, so please do come along if you'd like to. Thanks very much, and thanks again to the panel and to you, John, for chairing. Thank you.